After that, I wanted to read a statement from former Governor John Corzine into the record because he had asked that I do that this evening. So at this point, I would yield to my colleague, Mr. Pascrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really am honored to be on the floor with two great congressmen, Congressman Pallone and Congressman Lance. I know the three of us served in the New Jersey legislature. John Adler was a great New Jersey senator. He was everything but a Harvard man. In other words, he didn't act like a Harvard man. You could connect with him. He was a human being above everything else. He was tenacious on the campaign trail, but he was more valuable as a public servant. He took what he did very seriously. He was sincere, very hardworking. He did his homework before each vote. He would never allow anyone to lead him by the nose to vote. Very independent thinker, not unlike Pallone and Lance. He was not a Trenton guy. He was not a Washington guy. He came here to do a job. And I could not believe when I heard the news, a 51-year-old young man, well, compared to me, he's a young man. He had so much to give, and he gave it. And he really loved the public he served. He will be greatly missed by Democrats and Republicans on this floor. To his wife, Shelley, and their 4 beautiful sons, Jeff, Alex, Andrew, and Oliver. You have friends here. This is by no means the end. So, growing up in Haddonfield and coming to Washington, there was no difference to John Adler. He truly loved his fellow man. He truly did what he was supposed to do here on his mission. Folks voted him here. Even when things didn't go well in the last election, he rose above. He was a winner in every sense of the word. God bless him. God bless our beautiful state. God bless the best country in the world. We remember John Adler this evening with fond memory. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you, my colleague. I mentioned, Mr. Speaker, that former Governor Corzine, who worked with John Adler for many years on judicial and law enforcement issues while Adler served in the state Senate as chairman of the Judiciary Committee, and Corzine, of course, was the governor at the time. He asked that I read this statement on the passing of Congressman John Adler. And it says, Congressman John Adler was a dedicated public servant whose wit, intelligence, and drive enriched the public debate in both the New Jersey State House and in our nation's capital. For nearly half his life, Congressman Adler committed himself to the truly noble idea that our government and our great country can be a force for good in the lives of so many citizens. Today, we owe a depth of gratitude to Shelley Adler for sharing John with countless New Jerseyans who, whether they know it or not, are better off because of her loving and generous husband. John's true legacy, however, as Shelley would certainly attest, is found in 4 wonderful boys who will undoubtedly enrich their communities with the same spirit of compassion and commitment to the greater good found in their father. While we mourn John's passing, may we also celebrate him by remembering that our own lives are defined by those moments when we decide to stop and help someone else. Those are the comments by former Governor Corzine. And, Mr. Speaker, I know that Congressman Holt before mentioned some of the statements that were made by friends and relatives at John Adler's funeral this afternoon in Cherry Hill. I did want to, if I could, just take a couple of excerpts here, as I know we only have a few minutes left, that I'd like to enter into the record. Some parts of the narrative of the funeral that are mentioned in Politic or NewJersey.com. It starts out by saying they came Wednesday to honor the memory of John Adler, a New Jersey exemplar, a self-made man of Horatio Alger levels, a man of law, a family man, and a man of the people. Rabbi Jerome David said, and I quote, "John died too soon, too young, after a 3-week battle in the hospital, surrounded by his family, surrounded by a very dedicated circle of friends," he said, "but he died knowing he used his intelligence and skills to help people, to really make a difference." Another rabbi spoke of his humble leadership, reading a passage in Hebrew and translating it into English, quote, "It is not the position that honors the man, rather it is the man who has honored the position. He saw himself as a public servant in the best sense." The rabbi recalled a particular moment that exemplified John's joie de vivre, when the Harvard-schooled politician would exit a stage, ignoring completely the half-stack of steps attached to the side, and he would bound off the front onto the people's floor. 2 of his sons spoke at the funeral. The eldest, Andrew, emotionally recalled how much his father would get from doing the mundane family things like attending soccer games, yelling some absurdity onto the field at tense moments. "I will always miss him," his son said, "but I know he was always proud of the ones he loved." And lastly, Mr. Speaker, the rabbi concluded the ceremony with a poem that ends, and I quote, "Perhaps my time seemed all too brief. Don't lengthen it now with undue grief. Lift up your hearts and share with me. God wanted me now. He set me free." And with that, Mr. Speaker, I will yield back the balance of my time.
The chair will recognize the gentleman from New Jersey for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the adjournment of the House.
The question is on the motion to adjourn. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Accordingly, the House stands adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow.
The House debated a bill today to repeal the Environmental Protection Agency's ability to regulate greenhouse gas emissions.